Qatar, just a couple of days away, and we got a lot to cover. The actual headlines and the news for this week has been extremely good. We've had a lot of it, and it's been very entertaining. So let's start off talking about 2024. So the first thing we're going to get into is 2024 cars will be allowed to travel 200 kilometers instead of 100 for each filming day. From January 1st, it'll finally be possible to use 2022 cars to train. Now, this is going to be good for every single team looking to actually bring up their drivers, see the competitive times between. I think a guy to really look out for is like a Felipe Drugovich, but also like Red Bull Juniors, like if they bring up Iwasa, Liam Lawson, yet again, seeing him now like in an RB19 for next year, how he's going to be testing the car, RB18, sorry. But it's going to be a good test for rookies to see how it is actually in the ground effect era, how they are in the cars, and actually being able to test with them. Also, for filming days, teams can get a better grasp about how their 2024 car is, even in something as simple as a filming day. So, pretty interesting news, nothing crazy, but good to note. Next thing that is pretty crazy is about Alpine. So, man, these guys, they really love to have some internal conflicts, and it's just a mess over there. It really is. So the headline is Alpine Formula One CEO reveals plans to fix huge internal problems. So part of the internal problems is that the actual team themselves, so the Alpine team and the Renault team, because Renault obviously works on the engines and they are kind of like a collaborative team. Alpine is really just the title sponsor. Renault is essentially what the team is. They get separate hotels. They don't want to stay with each other. They're constantly arguing about what should be done with the team, what they should do with the engine. Their engine's already been reported to be like 30 horsepower down on everybody else. The car is just constantly having issues with its reliability. Obviously, they have the whole entire 5-year plan that got disbanded as well. Like, it's just a continuing, ongoing mess. But to have like such close people, like not in the same hotels and not talking and arguing, and I mean, they just fired Omar. They fired also the sporting director, Alan Permain, who's been with the team for like 35 years. So clearly it's just a big mess over there in the Renault group. It's constant fighting, constant arguing, and if that continues, what can you really expect from a team? You think this team's going to step up and beat Ferrari and Mercedes and even Aston Martin and McLaren with this type of issue? Clearly not. They need to work on getting together, actually have a set plan. Honestly, they fail the next couple of years but go hard in 2026. Why not just do that? Alpine continuously is on the back foot. They're mid-peen, like as everybody calls them. They're just always in the middle, and internal conflict will never make anything better. Probably has to do with them being so much horsepower down as to why they're arguing constantly. But yes, Alpine, you guys are something for Formula One, but it be what it be. Next thing, obviously, I covered this in my last video, wanted to shortly cover it. No real updates on Andretti's application. We do know that they're trying to join Formula One. A lot of people are talking about that it can be a huge risk for Formula One to actually not take them. I agree. I think that it is a big risk for them not to take Andretti, because a lot of fans now is really in the light, like, what are you going to do, Formula One? Your move. Hey, they're playing chess with them. They're trying to get them to actually get Andretti in the sport. And I appreciate that. We do need an 11 team, and Andretti, I think, would be a solid one. Can they fight with Ferrari? I mean, we'll have to find out after like 5 years in the sport. It takes time, obviously, but working with GM, working with Cadillac, they have their own kind of division being made for Formula One. So that is, I guess, updated news from yesterday. And they also talked about the cars being lighter. There are rumors now about the fuel going down with the kilograms going from like 110 to 90, looking to make the cars about 50 kilograms lighter. I hope they shoot for more. It's also rumored that they might go for like no weight restriction, but it would be super unsafe. The suspensions would just be breaking and the cars internally would just be trashed because every team is trying to go for a minimal weight. So I don't think it's going to happen. It'd probably make for a very entertaining year, but it's unsafe. So let's hope that that doesn't occur. But let's hope that we actually get like a mandatory, like a pretty low amount of weight in comparison to what we have right now. It's too high, being what, 796, I think is what the amount is, or 8? Too high, especially with 100 kilograms of fuel. AlphaTauri actually makes a decision for Qatar. It's a sprint weekend. It would be terrible to have Daniel Ricciardo in for just one practice session and then go in and automatically start like that. So I mean, he's going to have to be in a sprint weekend next weekend, but they have confirmed him for COTA. He's going to be in Circuit of the Americas, Texas GP, whatever you may call it. And this is Liam's last GP with us in Qatar. Hopefully he shows up. Another point would be nice from him. Dude's been great. I want to see him back in the sport. Honestly, Liam has been fantastic, and I gotta give him his flowers, as we say. So Liam has been fantastic. Hopefully comes back into the sport and kicks it off like he has been this year. Let's see what the whole entire drama going on. I mean, we got more to speak about with Red Bull later on. There was another little thing on Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari that I quickly wanted to mention and go about. He does say there was some brief informational talk with Ferrari, and they spoke about a contract and so on. So the whole entire $50 million contract for Ferrari was not fake. He says that him moving to Italy was a big concern that he didn't want to do. And I get that. He's been in Britain his whole entire life, in the UK in general, and why move everything and switch your whole entire situation from being in the sport for however long he's been into to now a couple of years, go to Ferrari and maybe not get a championship. He wants that 8th. He's obviously going to be fighting for it. Mercedes is the best squad to potentially get it for. I wanted to also talk about Jessica Hawkins, how she actually had her first F1 test for Aston Martin. That was actually pretty cool. I have seen her a whole bunch in a whole bunch of interviews talking about working on the simulator. They just recently got her like in a Formula 1 simulator, maybe like 6 or 7 months ago. She's been like this test reserve type driver for a long time and finally got a test. So that was pretty cool that they actually had her in the car and a female finally driving in a test vehicle. I think that's pretty cool. It would be cool if we were able to get some comparison somewhere with like how fast she is or isn't. But regardless, I think it's cool that she is driving a Formula 1 car and able to show off potential that Jessica Hawkins has. She was good in our W Series. I didn't really keep up with it, but I know where she was ranked. She actually had some very competitive races. I remember Miami being pretty competitive for her. So yeah, Jessica Hawkins is impressive. Hopefully her career keeps flourishing. Maybe she goes to IndyCar. Hey, maybe she steps up somewhere else. We'll have to see, but cool to hear regardless. Sergio Perez claims nationality bias and points to George Russell F1 crash. If that happens at Red Bull, so it doesn't finish there, but the whole entire quote was practically like, oh, because it happened here, but with George Russell, oh, because he crashed, there wasn't much coverage. And he's practically talking about that he's Mexican, and for that reason, they are covering him. Now, I do agree there is a biasness in Formula 1. Obviously, it's a UK sport, so there is biasness towards drivers like George Russell and Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris. Obviously, they're going to be loved, which they should be. It's UK, they're your drivers. Why wouldn't you love them? That's the type of sport it is. I don't agree to biasness. I don't try to be biased with anything. I do think that he's kind of trying to point the blame in a different direction. Sergio Perez has been a very consistent driver throughout his career, and everybody has loved him, with the exception of now, obviously, because in Red Bull he's crashing. He doesn't have the potential that he's had anymore. But when he was in McLaren a super long time ago, and the issues were coming about in McLaren, he blamed McLaren, even though McLaren wasn't the issue. It was Sergio. He was a pay driver at that time. Goes to Force India, finds himself a seat there, becomes a very renowned driver on his tires, does an insane race, and stuff is just going wrong. I mean, clearly he's not great in the car. It is a car that is not suited to his style, so I understand his frustration, but I don't think by any way somebody is going at him because of his nationality. It's just he hasn't had a great season, and that's just kind of what it's been. I do feel for him, though. I do feel for him. I hope he stays in our sport, and we'll have to see what happens. I hope he can turn it around, honestly. I mean, you ask me today, I'd be sick to see Sergio Perez win a world championship. I just don't believe it. I was one of the people talking about, is there potential for him to fight Max? And Miami comes and it all crashes down. So I don't think this is the case. I do think that Sergio Perez is a great driver. Hopefully he sticks around, but we'll have to see. I think a lot is going to stir up within the next couple of Grand Prix where his seat's going to be and whether he wants to be in the sport. Last thing I wanted to cover was from Mercedes. A lot of news, as I said. Mercedes is talking about how their engine, now this is something that, I mean, if you look at the car, you can practically tell from when they had their no side pod design. And this same issue occurs with Williams, it occurs with McLaren, and it occurs with Aston Martin. The engine is designed for a no side pod design. So for these cars, they all had to compromise the back of their car with the gearbox and the engine in a specific way to actually sort it out to make the car faster through aero, but the engine was toned down due to reliability of it being a no side pod design. Now, obviously you won't struggle with this with side pods, but the engine and how it's compacted and so on, now they can actually improvise this, make it better, have better change, maybe a smaller gearbox. I mean, if you look at the Red Bull gearbox, way smaller than the Mercedes. So they are going to now revise their engine, make sure they can actually turn up the engine a little bit for next year, which should help them. They say 10 horsepower is equivalent to about 2/10. So this is a big potential for Mercedes if they can actually sort this out, sort the reliability out, and get their car back running to, well, I mean, what we knew it to be. It's practically confirmed from outside sources, and Ted Kravitz keeps talking about that this car will look a lot like the Red Bull concept. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world, and peace.